I know we've been, the last few Sundays, the word has been good. It's been, right on time. It's been instant. It's been kind of quick. So I'm going to try and stay in that same vein, all right? William told me that I was one of the long-winded preachers, so I'm going to try. I can't see that clock back there, but y'all help me. If I go past a certain time, let me know. But we thank God on this morning, amen, for this chance just to hear from him. How many of you in the house have ever had trust issues? Yeah, so it's safe to say that many of us, or maybe all of us, have had some type of trust issues in our lives. And when we think about it, when we're babies, when we're infants, we have no problem trusting. We trust our moms, we trust our dads, we trust that they're going to feed us, they're going to clothe us, they're going to be there when we cry. So it's almost like it's a part of our very being that we trust. And we often, as we grow older, we extend that trust to our family members, to people that we interact with. And so at some point, that trust is broken. At some point, things in our lives happen that cause us not to be able to trust. It causes us not to be able to relax with one another. It causes us not to be able to be ourselves around one another. But I just come to remind you on today that one person that you can trust is Jesus Christ. You can trust him. You can trust his process. And so that's what I want to talk about on today, being able to trust the process. So often God says, okay, this is what I have for you. These are the things that I'm going to give you. But in order to get to that place, in order to get those things, there's a process that we have to go through. And sometimes that process isn't comfortable. It doesn't feel good. And when we get in that process and it doesn't seem like it's going the way that God said that it was going to go, we begin to get discouraged. We begin to feel like, okay, it's not going to happen. But God just come to remind you on today that he's one that you can trust. He's never let you down. He's never forgotten about you. If you think about all the things that he's caused you to come through, that he's allowed you to come through, we can say with a surety that he is definitely one that we can trust. Amen? Amen. Again, I want you to trust the process. To trust the process means to know and to have faith that there is a divine plan moving through you and for you in your life at any moment. To trust the plan, to know that to have faith that there is a divine plan in your life, regardless of what the situation may feel like, or regardless of what you may be going through. Trust the process because God is in it. If y'all will turn with me to 2 Kings, the 5th chapter. 2 Kings, the 5th chapter, and I'll read the 1st through the 6th verse, and then I jump down and read the 8th through the 10th. That's 2 Kings 5. Y'all have it, say amen? Amen. The Bible says, now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, would God my Lord were the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went in and told his Lord, saying, thus said the maid, that this is the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, now, when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. Skip down to verse 8. And it was so, when Elisha, the man of God, had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. So we see here where Naaman, he was a Syrian military commander, and he actually had leprosy. And if you know, leprosy was a skin disease, and back in that day, it was a disease that was kind of frowned down upon. No one wanted to be around anyone with leprosy. But this was a man who was a man of valor. He was a respected man, a well-known man. He was a man of war. And so we see here where he had the issue of leprosy. And so arrangements were, he got word from his servant's wife, and he learned that there was a prophet in Israel that could heal him of his leprosy. And so Naaman said, okay, let's make arrangements so that I can go to Israel and meet with Elisha. So he got the word that there was someone there who was going to heal him. So he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go down and meet this man so that I can receive my healing. How many of you have need of God to do something for you, and God has said, okay, I'm going to do it, and this is the way that I want you to do it? Sometimes we see the end, but we don't realize the process that we're going to have to go through to get to that. And so Naaman, he's assuming that this process is going to be instant. So he's heard the word of this prophet who's been healing, laying hands on, just speaking the word, and people are being healed. So he has this perception in his mind of what this healing is going to look like, how it's going to take place. And so it says that Naaman, he went out to Elisha's house. And when he got to Elisha's house, he was waiting out in front of Elisha's house. He was waiting for him to come out and just instantly heal him. And so you know what Elisha did? Elisha, he didn't come out. He sent out a messenger. And so he sent out the messenger, and he gave a word to Naaman. And he said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go into the Sea of Jordan, and I want you to wash yourself 7 times, and you will become clean. And so he sent the word to Naaman, and Naaman was kind of like upset. Like, okay, wait a minute. First of all, I'm at your house. You can't even come out and speak to me. You know, you can't even come out and speak to me yourself. You send a messenger. Right. Trust the process. And so Naaman, he became angry, and he began to complain, and he began to think, okay, this is not what I was expecting. This is not what I want. This is not how I've heard that God has been healing and blessing instantly. How many of you have ever found yourself in that place when God has spoken something to you that he was going to do, and it's not happening the way that you want it to happen? And therefore you become frustrated, you become angry, and you want to take things into your own hand. You want to take control of it. And so Naaman, he began to complain, and he got angry. And then he said, okay, well, first of all, you didn't come out to greet me, and then you want me to go dip myself in the Jordan River when the water in Syria is even better than the Jordan River. So I don't understand this. I don't get this. And so that's how it is when God gives us instructions to do something and we don't understand it. We get frustrated, and we just want to be like, you know what, forget it. It ain't even worth it. But trust the process. There's God knows what he's doing. He doesn't make any mistakes. He wants you to learn something before he can release unto you what it is that he has for you. There's a certain process that we have to go through in order for us to learn. And so we see here where Naaman he got to the point where he was like, you know what, this ain't working. You know, he mad about how the prophet didn't greet him. And so he says, this isn't what I signed up for, in so many words. Yeah. When we think about the process, when we think about what we're going through, if you think about yourself right now, where you are, think about what it is that you need from God. Think about what it is that he's promised you. And at some point, you may have gotten to where you say, you know what, this ain't right. And you want to take it back from God. This is not what you said. I think you made a mistake, Lord. This ain't the best way to do this. You ever, said to yourself, you know, there's a better way to do this, God. Why you got me going this route? I know a better route. And so God is just saying on today, trust the process. And so when Naaman, he was fussing and complaining, and at some point there, Naaman's level of trust in this suggested process was 0. He didn't trust. He didn't know how God was going to do this, and he was just frustrated. His own perception had him off in a place that wasn't a good place to be, because he was no longer trusting in the process. And so he began to, as he was complaining, and it was one of the servants that came to him and said, Naaman, so if the prophet had told you to do something difficult, you would have done it, right? And so he said, yes. And so she said, well, why isn't it that you can't do this? It's simple. He just told you to go and wash in the Jordan for 7 times. And so she asked him this question, and it caused him to think, you know what? This is simple. I can do this. And so sometimes things, we look for them to be difficult. We look for them to be, God to just have us to do something that's just spectacular. And he does that. And oftentimes he does it. But then sometimes he'll cause us to do those simple things, and he just wants to see if we're going to be obedient. And so this is where he was. He wanted to see if Naaman was going to be obedient and do what it was that he wanted him to do. And so it was as if Naaman, the servants that were speaking to him, they were like, okay, let's just try it. Let's just see what's going to happen. And Minister Sean talked a couple weeks ago about that guide. You know, having a guide in our lives, whether it be through our pastor or a counselor or someone that God has placed in your life to guide you. And so sometimes we have to be aware of who speaks into our lives, of who comes to us telling us things. And so the servants began to cause him to see things differently. He said, okay, well, I guess I'll give it a try. And so we have to be in the same place that Naaman was, where we have to get to the place where we're willing to do what it is that God has told us to do. And so he said, I'll dip myself in the river. And he did just that. He dipped himself in the river for seven times. And it says that instantly he was healed. Instantly his body became just as a young boy. So because of his obedience, because he did what God called him to do, he was healed. And we may be at that point where we're like, okay, God, you said in order for me to be healed, I need to eat this. I can't eat that. In order for me to have a family, in order for me to be married, you want me to pray for married people? In order for me to get this promotion on my job, you mean that means I got to come into work early every single day? In order for me to be wealthy, that means that I have to sow a little more. In order for me to be the man or woman of God that you want me to be spiritually, that means I just need to pray a little more. It just means I need to trust you a little more. So you mean to tell me, God, these little simple things that you're instructing me to do, if I begin to do them, then I'll see the move of God. God, if it means for us to grow as a church that I have to come to church at 7:45 in the morning, then I'll do that. Be honest, how many of you looked at the weather and looked at the temperature this morning and said, you know what, I wouldn't be mad if they cancel church on today. Yeah, so it's not just me, huh? I sure thought about it. I was like, oh, it's kind of cold outside. Maybe I kept checking the Facebook page and see churches been canceled. But it's the simple things. But because of your obedience, because of your willingness to get out early in the morning, out in this cold, because you've decided to trust the process, God is going to honor that. He's going to bless you. I know it's uncomfortable, a pastor and apostle, having to share your space, but God is saying trust the process. He hasn't forgot what he said. He hasn't forgot what he's going to give you. He's going to give you the land. He's going to give you the building, but trust the process. Even though the process may be uncomfortable, it may be, feel like it causes you to, be upset. It causes you to sometimes get a little angry. God, why do you want me to do it this way? But God is saying trust the process. And so we have to get to that point where we're trusting the process, trusting what God has called us to do. And after he dipped himself in the water, he was whole. He became complete. He became healed of his leprosy. And so that's what God is wanting us to do. He is wanting us to trust the process, do what it is that he's called us to do, and trust him and know that his hand is on it. And sometimes when the process isn't going the way we want to take control. We want to do it our way. We want to do it the way that we feel like it's best. But God is saying, I know what I'm doing. Just allow me to do it. Allow me to do it my way. My way is always better. As I said, I've never let you down. This is God speaking. I've never let you down. I've never forgotten about you. And if you can look back over your life, all the things that I brought you through, I brought you from, they worked. I didn't let you down. And God is just reminding you on today that I'm not that man who's lied to you. I'm not that girlfriend who stabbed you in the back. I'm not that co-worker who's always telling on you. I'm not those church members that look down on you. God is saying, I'm the one that you can trust. So we have to get to the point where it's like, you know what, all or nothing. God, I trust you and I trust the process. So many times we'll say, God, I trust you, but we don't trust his process. So it goes hand in hand. Many of you are familiar with the challenges that we face with Trey and his eyelid. And so recently we went to see the ophthalmologist, and he told us, okay, he's going to need surgery, and we need to do it soon. because his eyelid was obstructing his vision. And so because of that, the doctor was saying that his eyesight could be affected. And because of the way he was holding his head, trying to see under the eyelid, it could cause issues in his neck and the way that he held his head. So he said, okay, so he recommended surgery. And all along, I believed God for healing. I said, God, I believe you for healing. I trust that you're going to heal him. But when he came to me and said the surgery, it kind of threw me off a little bit, because I'm like, okay, God, I'm believing you for healing. But then God began to show me, he began to tell me, I'm that type of guy. If I choose to heal him instantly, I can do that. Or if I choose to heal him through the hands of the doctor, I can do it. So God began to speak to me. A couple weeks ago, he began to speak this word to me, trust the process, trust the process. And I didn't really realize what that meant until I found myself in this situation. So he had surgery on Thursday. And Pastor, I brought Trey up last week so that he can have prayer for his surgery. And Pastor Candace, she prayed for him, and she said, don't worry, everything is going to be all right. She said he's going to be so calm when you're going into it. It's going to kind of scare you a little bit because he's going to be so calm. But don't be afraid. That's the hand of the Lord that's on him. So the Lord is going to let you know that he's with him. So she said, don't be afraid. He's not going to have a whole bunch of surgeries. God is going to work this out. I had a peace. I said, okay, God, you know what? I trust you. Thank you, God. So we got there on Thursday, and just as God said, the lady that was taking his vital signs and all, he was just sitting there. He was so calm. Mind you, he hadn't eaten since 11 o'clock the night before. And Trey eats several times through the night. So I was already thinking, oh Lord, this is going to be rough, because he hadn't had a chance to eat because of the surgery. They wouldn't allow him to eat. So we get there, we're checking him in, and the lady's checking his vital signs and everything, and he was just calm. And the lady said, the lady that was checking him, she said, is he always this laid back? And I was like, no, I don't, not even thinking, not even putting the two and two together. I was like, no, usually at this point, he's bouncing off the walls. But he was sitting there, he was just calm. He allowed her to check his pulse and check his oxygen, and he was just sitting there with no problems. Everything went smoothly when we registered. We got there and registered. The lady said, your insurance is covering everything. You don't even have to pay the copay. It's been waived. When I tell you, everything was just going smoothly. So I was like, thank you, God. And so we get back there, he goes into surgery, and he's laughing. He's in a great mood. We got pictures of him. He's just, laughing and talking, and talking to the people, the different nurses. Just calm, just having a good time. And so he gets back there, and he goes in surgery, and William and I are waiting in the room. And so we began to watch Family Feud. So the whole time we laughing and talking, and before we know it, we look up, they bring it back in the room. We're like, wow, that was quick. So everything has gone smoothly, just as God had said. And so when they brought him in, I was a little shocked, because my perception of what he should have looked like after the surgery was the same pictures that I had looked at online that was showing the before and after, how a person looks after the surgery. So my perception was totally different than what the reality was. Right. And so when he came out, and I was like, ooh, because what they had to do was they had to take his eye muscle, his eyebrow muscle. They took a silicone rod and connected his eyebrow muscle to his eyelid muscle, so that it'll allow it to raise up and down. And so for a while, his eye is literally open all the time until that muscle heals and begins to work on its own, and then he'll be able to blink it. And so when I saw him, it kind of shocked me. And so instantly I began to worry, did I do the wrong thing? Did we make a mistake? So I began to worry, and my headache started instantly. I'm not even realizing what this is. And so when we get him home, and I'm just, my nerves are all over the place. And God began to remind me, it wasn't until yesterday he began to remind me, remember what I said. I've already shared with you some of how this process will go. And everything that I have said has come to pass. I told you that he was going to be calm. I told you that everything was going to be okay. See, I've seen the end. I know that his eye is going to be healed. I've seen the end, but I hadn't seen the process. I didn't see what it was in the middle that I would have to experience. And so that caused my faith to be shaky. Just as Naaman, when he got to the place where he was waiting for his healing, it wasn't like he thought it was going to be. It wasn't instantly like he thought it was going to be. And so I found myself in the same place. That healing wasn't instantly. And so it began to cause me to shake. It caused me to question and to doubt. But God is saying on today, trust the process. And so he began to speak to me on yesterday and began to bring everything back to my remembrance of even the things that he said. And he said, yes, I've told you this. I was going to be healed. And I haven't changed my mind about that. So I need you to trust this process. And so that's what I'm reminding you on today, to trust the process. Even though it may not look good, it may not feel good, and it may look differently than what you think it should look like, God is saying trust the process. And as I began to realize that that's what I was doing, and I was actually had a conversation with William on Friday, I was like, I don't know what it is. I'm not at ease with this, and this just hadn't gone the way I wanted it to go. Sometimes it just takes you speaking, it takes you talking and get things off your mind, and you'll realize that you've answered your own question. You've solved your own problem. And so I was talking to him. I said, I don't know what it is. I just don't feel comfortable with this. I'm wondering, how is it going to be in the end? I wonder how we're going to take care of his eye. I said, I just can't control this, and it's bothering me. And I didn't even realize it at the time that I said it, but yesterday God was bringing this back to me. That was the problem. I'm trying to control it. And God is saying, take your hands off of it. I have it. And so some of you may have found yourself in that same place where you're trying to control it. You're trying to do it this way. God, you said that you were going to mend this relationship, but it should be like this. God said, you're maybe saying, God, you said that you want to give me this business, but you didn't say it was going to be this hard. God said, you may be thinking, God, you've promised me money, but why am I always broke? Why am you always calling me to give? God is saying, trust the process. I've not forgotten. I've not changed my mind. You're going to get what it is that I promised you. I just need you to trust the process. And just as Naaman did, he got to the point where he said, okay, I'm going to try it God's way. What have I got to lose? So that's how we have to be all in. It's all or nothing. God, I not only trust you, but I trust your process. And so we have to remember that. We've got to trust the process. And when you get in a place where you're feeling uncomfortable, where you're feeling like, okay, maybe I miss God, trust his process. Remind yourself, trust the process. Trust what it is God has called you to do. And so we have to trust God's process even if we don't understand it. Trust first, understand later.
That's good.
Trust first, understand later. It's as simple as that. So that's what I want you to do. Remind yourself that I trust God. I trust his process. So add that to your I trust God. I trust God and his process. Whatever that process may be, however you're going to get me to that end, I trust you and I trust your process.